Hey guys, welcome back to The Stimulus. I'm Steph, and this week, rather than doing my regular twisting videos, I didn't really have time to research because my dad's in town visiting, so I decided to shoot a Q&A instead. So let's get down to it. Our first question comes from Jerry D. Elmore at BlueRSX. If the Earth was flat, would you be able to see Everest from England? Well, everybody knows that the Earth is round, and that's the way it is. The Earth is so vast that it's kind of like standing on a completely flat surface. The curvature of the Earth really isn't something that we can observe. In an ideal situation where the Earth is completely flat and the atmosphere doesn't just float away and we don't all die immediately, you would only gain a little bit more visibility. I did a little bit of research online, and the consensus seems to be that even if the Earth was completely flat, you would only be able to see about 180 miles. So standing in England, you still wouldn't be able to see Everest. Sorry. So long story short, if the Earth was completely flat, you'd get a little bit more visibility, but not enough to make a big enough impact. Our next question comes from Christopher O'Leary, or at True Submariner. He asks, we use reverse osmosis tech on Navy ships for pure water. How can this be maximized for areas that struggle to get clean H2O? The biggest factor playing into this kind of technology to become widespread is cost. For those of you that don't know, California is in a super bad drought right now, and it's gotten so bad that they're turning on desalination plants on the coast that do in fact use reverse osmosis. The problem is, it's not a very efficient process, so it's very expensive. Unless somebody can come up with a more efficient and cost-effective way of doing this, I don't see it becoming a widespread thing anytime soon. I personally would love to see this kind of technology developed and distributed in areas where they really struggle to find purified drinking water. So if anybody knows that this kind of technology is being worked on for widespread development, please comment down below and let me know. This is very limited knowledge that I have of this particular subject. I just know what's going on here in California in terms of desalination, and I know it's pretty expensive. Next question comes from Johnny Vasquez, or at Johnny Vasquez. Can you explain how a galaxy can be further away from us than the age of the universe? Yes, I can. So in a perfectly stationary universe, you would expect the farthest things away that you could see to be the same age as the universe. Just for simple mathematical purposes, say the universe was 1 year old. If the universe was completely stationary, you wouldn't see anything more than 1 light year away. If you saw a star system that was 2 light years away, that means that it took 2 years for the light to get to you. And in a perfectly stationary universe where nothing is moving, how could that be if the universe was 1 year old? However, we don't live in a perfectly stationary universe. In fact, our universe is constantly expanding, so everything is moving apart. Think about an explosion. You have the starting point of the explosion, but as the explosion begins and continues, everything accelerates away from that starting point, and that's exactly what's happening in our universe. And since the universe is constantly expanding, that's why you have galaxies and other celestial bodies that are further away from us than the age of the universe. I hope that made sense. I tried to break it down as best as I could to be palatable, I guess. Our next question is one that I forgot to do last time because I didn't check my Facebook, but it comes from my cousin Addison. Hey Addie! Addie wants to know why different parts of the Earth have different times during the day. And I have just the answer for you, Addison. As the Earth goes around the sun, it's turning, so light is hitting different parts of the Earth at different times. To account for this, we created time zones, because 2 o'clock in the afternoon here might be completely dark for somebody else in the world. This is why the sun moves from east to west in the sky, because the Earth is rotating. Since I'm 2 time zones west of you, what's 2 o'clock in the afternoon for you is just 12 o'clock in the afternoon for me. So that's why we have different times in different parts of the Earth, because the world turns. Miss you, Addie. Tell your mom and dad hi. Next up, Brittany Lee Wagner at Keepin9It.Real asks, what do you think about the biofuel project in Masdar City? Strong enough to use as rocket fuel? Probably not strong enough to use as rocket fuel based on the systems that we have today, but there are companies such as Boeing that are heavily invested in this project. Me personally, I am all for clean energy, so this kind of alternative fuel that'll get us off fossil fuels is a great concept for me, and stuff like this really gets me excited. For those of you that don't know, which was me until recently, basically this biofuel focuses around a plant called halophyte, or halophyte, I'm not entirely sure if I got that right. Basically, in order to grow this plant, Boeing and other huge companies are investing in massive aquacultures to grow shrimp and fish and other marine life. And what do all these life forms have in common? Well, they produce waste. Everybody poops. This waste will be used to help grow the halophyte plants, and then the clean water will be pumped back into the oceans. I think it's a great idea, and I would be very interested to see what kind of applications this fuel has in the future. Our next question comes from Derek Urbanowski at Wild Derek, who asks, can't think of any science questions, which is okay. So what books inspired you as a kid? What are you currently reading? For me as a kid, I read everything I could get my hands on, and that was one thing that my parents did a really great job of doing, was encouraging me to read. So much so that I was always the kid getting in trouble for having my book hidden in my desk during class and reading. But I read a little bit of everything. I read all the Harry Potter novels, I read science books, I read fantasy books. I loved everything. But I started to really like sci-fi once I got into college. As for books I'm reading right now, I'm reading 2 books, Neil deGrasse Tyson's Death by Black Hole, and then Dale Brown's Whiplash at the recommendation of one of my coworkers. As for books I would recommend, definitely The Martian by Andy Weir. I love that book so much, and I'm so excited that it's going to be a movie soon. Ridley Scott, don't you let me down. Oh, yeah, when I was reading it, Matt Damon was definitely the person that I thought would be perfect if they ever made a movie to play Mark Watney, and now he is, and I'm just so excited. Other than that, I'm basically reading comic books because, why not? I'm getting caught back up on my Deadpool comics, and then the Princess Leia comic book has actually been really good so far, and the newest Thor, I just finished the last issue for the first volume, and I cried. So that's what I would recommend. That's my reading list at the moment. Next question comes from Matthew Smith at MA Brassam, who asks, what got you interested in STEM as a kid? For me personally, there was a lot that got me interested in STEM. I was always the kid going out and getting dirty and wanting to experiment, and that's one of the reasons I accidentally blew up a breaker at the house when I was 10. We had just moved in, and I was curious as to what would happen if I touched white and green together, and guess what? You create a mini fireworks show in the upstairs game room. But also I was just always interested in space. I think the story that I always talk about for me, especially for aviation, because space and aviation have always been a huge thing for me, was that I was running around in my backyard in southern Illinois and I saw what looked like a flying saucer. It was just this very thin shape with a cockpit, and that's all I could see, and then it banked out, and it was just breathtaking for me. It was a stealth bomber, and it was just like that's amazing. And my dad really loves aviation. He's really into fighter jets and all that stuff, so growing up it was a very strong influence in my life, and I always wanted to be an astronaut, and I always loved exploration. So for me, being an aerospace engineer and wanting to work in the space industry and explore the final frontier, which yes, I grew up watching a lot of Star Trek and Star Wars as well, it was kind of a natural progression for me. But I think the biggest part was that my parents were always encouraging me, even when, I dragged in things that I'd made out of mud, or I was smashing rocks to see the inside, or if I was zapping breakers in the house, they still always encouraged me to be curious and to experiment. And I think that's the biggest thing, the best thing that I would recommend to any parent, in fact, is just, if you want your child to potentially pursue a STEM career, first of all, it has to be their choice, obviously, but just encourage them to be curious. If they blow up stuff on accident, if they take apart things and they can't put it back together, it's that kind of curiosity that really does just kind of lead you down that path. So I would recommend, that kind of approach. But for me, yeah, it was definitely just a natural curiosity and need to experiment and need to understand things and just want to explore. And it just kind of led me absolutely to where I am today. And so, yeah, that was long-winded, but yeah, that's how it happened. My life story in a nutshell. Our last question of the day comes from Rob at Rob Cabrera, who asks, Steph, how many Bothans died to get Mon Mothma to look forlornly in that Return of the Jedi briefing scene? # Geek Question. To which my response is, well, not enough to let everybody know that the space station was fully operational. For those of you that are new here, Rob Cabrera is the super nice, talented, funny human being that does the artwork for the channel, and he and his company Creative Squirrels have just been awesome and doing just such really cool artwork for me. So I highly encourage you to go check them out. I will include their social media down in the description down below. So yeah, go check them out and show Creative Squirrels some love, man. If you like this video and you want to see more sciencey kind of things, or you just think I am fun and charming, please feel free to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I am putting out videos every weekend here on the Stimulus. And next week we'll be going back to the regular Twistem video on Saturday. So if you find any really cool STEM news stories throughout the week, please feel free to send them to me on Twitter at StephEvs43 using the # Twistem, and they just might wind up in next week's show. But that's all I have for you guys this week. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the weekend, and I will see you next time.